The worst biopic ever made. Wired. The Short Life and Fast Times of John Belushi by Pop Culture Hyperfixations. I got no idea. I don't even know what the biopic is. I'll be completely honest. I don't understand these movie terms. Anyways, let's go in. Let's see.
For as long as people have been able to make films, they've been making them about real people.
Why is Abraham Lincoln here?
The first motion picture was made in 1888, and by 1900 the first biographical film was already made. As the years rolled on and Hollywood increased in scope and influence, the biographical film, or biopic as it's more commonly known, became commonplace. I mean, it makes sense. It's a lot easier to convince audiences to see a movie when they already have some awareness about the subject. And in the 125 years since the first biopic was made, a lot of audiences have seen a lot of movies about a lot of people. Now, even though the genre seems limiting, there are a lot of eclectic ways these films differentiate themselves from one another.
Oh no, not this. Anybody remember this movie? Wasn't this about Robbie Williams, but instead he's like a fucking monkey? I think it was.
There are the ones that pride themselves on their accuracy, and then there are the ones that really stretch the use of creative license. There are the films where a performer disappears into the subject, and then there are the films where it seems like the actor didn't do a second of research. There's the kind of movies where you find yourself somehow rooting for a terrible director to finish his masterpiece, and then there's the kind of movies where you're horrified when an amazing comedian finishes his milkshake.
I had a lot of strawberry malteds in my life, you know that? But of all of them I ever had, boy, Eddie, this one's the best.
Bro died doing what he loves the most, drinking a strawberry milkshake. There could be worse things. Not gonna lie, it could be worse.
Ultimately, when it comes down to biopics, it really comes down to those that are good and those that are bad. And boy, have there been a lot of bad ones. Movies that for whatever reason failed their subject on some level. What if I told you of a movie that failed its subject on every level? A movie about the death of one of pop culture's most enduring figures that ultimately killed some careers. This is the story of Wired.
He turned Saturday night into the hottest party of the week.
Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger!
Then he headed for Hollywood.
I wonder if anybody will...
I will definitely get castrated by the copyright for this one. For sure. I'm dying.
recognize us.
Where the party never ended.
A wild man, totally wild.
And for John Belushi, every night was Saturday night.
Go down in history! Yeah!
Wired. Rated R.
In the 1970s, there were few entertainers more popular than John Belushi. The comedian first gained national prominence in 1975 as one
Okay, John Belushi. Okay. Let's see where this is going.
of the original Saturday Night Live not ready for primetime players. In his 4 seasons on SNL, Belushi cemented himself as one of the most popular cast members in the history of the show. He was a comedic force of nature, and even in a show where seemingly anything could happen, Belushi still brought an element of danger. It wasn't too long before Hollywood came calling and iconic roles in films like Animal House quickly followed. His partnership with Dan Aykroyd is legendary, especially in their collaboration as the Blues Brothers. What started as a performance on SNL turned into multiple successful albums and eventually a feature film. Look, it's difficult to properly convey just how massive Belushi was at this point, but there's an off-cited piece of trivia that might sum it up better than I could. Saturday Night Live debuted when Belushi was 27 years old, but by the time he turned 30, he was appearing on the #1 show, the #1
This guy seems familiar. I just can't pinpoint it.
movie, and the #1 album in the country, all at the same time. Unfortunately, despite his immense professional success, Belushi's personal life was chaos. His history with substance abuse is well known, and for a lot of people that became his defining trait. A lot of people saw Belushi as Bluto Blutarsky come to life, a Tasmanian devil of comedy. And it would be unfair to me to say that there wasn't some truth to that. He wasn't a mindless idiot, but Belushi was a wild man. He smoked and drank.
I think I've seen this guy somewhere before, but okay, you know who Dan Aykroyd is? Ghostbusters, right? That one guy? I'm pretty sure. Ghostbusters. He's in Ghostbusters. Very sure.
But his real problems came from an addiction to cocaine. Even during the 70s, where many in Hollywood
A classic. It's Hollywood, baby.
Hollywood were using it recreationally, John's heavy usage still frightened people. With the support of his friends and family, John made numerous attempts to curb his addiction, but unfortunately on May 5th, 1982, his demons finally caught up with him.
Good evening, I'm Marty McNeely for WGN News. Comic actor John Belushi died today at a rented hotel bungalow in the Hollywood Hills. Authorities say that cause of death is believed to have been a heart attack. Fire department medics said they were called to the hotel, where they found Belushi unconscious.
He overdosed. A classic. He overdosed.
And choking.
In hindsight, we now know that Belushi didn't die of any natural causes. He died from an overdose of cocaine and heroin administered by a woman named Kathy Smith.
Damn, two even. Pronounced Aykroyd. Okay, Aykroyd. Classic. So two things even. Bro really wanted to go at this point.
Belushi's death was a wake-up call for many in the entertainment industry. Robin Williams was with Belushi hours before he died, and that death scared him into sobriety. If it could happen to Belushi, it could happen to anyone. It seems silly to say now, but a lot of people thought that Belushi was indestructible. Hell, Dan Aykroyd had nicknamed him the Albanian Oak. But at 33 years old,
The Albanian Oak. That's wild.
John had appeared to finally self-destruct. His friends and family knew John's death was a real possibility, but still there was strange circumstances surrounding it that gave them pause. Kathy Smith's role in his death was very suspicious. She was by her own admission the last person to see him alive, and rumors began to swirl that she was somehow connected to the Los Angeles Police Department. With those stories and many more out there, John's widow Judith wanted to find out the truth, so she looked for someone to investigate it. Her first pick was a Chicago reporter named Mike Royko. Royko was a favorite of John Belushi's, who had used the newspaper man as inspiration for his role in 1981's Continental Divide. After Royko declined, Judith was put in touch with the Washington Post's Bob Woodward. At first glance, Woodward seemed like an odd selection. I mean, his credentials spoke for themselves, with the most notable obviously being his part in uncovering Richard Nixon's role in the Watergate scandal. But why would he want to get involved with investigating the death of John Belushi?
Okay, John Belushi. I wonder where this is going. There's no way this is gonna be like some deep conspiracy theory. He was taken out by somebody, actively overdosed.
It turns out there was a bit of a serendipitous connection there, as Woodward and Belushi both grew up in Wheaton, Illinois. To help the investigation, Judith reached out to John's friends and colleagues and helped Woodward connect with them. Finally, on June 4th, 1984, Bob Woodward released his book, Wired: The Short Life and Fast Times of John Belushi. To say Woodward's book wasn't what Judith Belushi expected would be an understatement. Wired is a book that not only refuses to shy away from John's drug problems, but makes them a primary focus. It's a book that's not afraid to name names, as the drug habits of celebrities like Carrie Fisher and Jack Nicholson are laid bare for the world to see. The book reads like an indictment of drugs in Hollywood as a whole, and really goes after those Woodward feels enabled John. As you would imagine, those close to Belushi.
Interesting. Well, those close to him didn't like this, and those whose drug abuse was exposed didn't like that either. There's a war comedy movie called 1941, made by Steven Spielberg. It was after Jaws. It stars John Belushi, John Candy, then Aykroyd, and Christopher Lee. It's a funny bat movie. Okay, interesting.
Were furious. Aside from their offense at being portrayed as enablers, they felt that the book wasn't interested in John Belushi the man, it was interested in John Belushi the drug addict. In his book Giant of the Senate, former SNL writer Al Franken quoted a joke by his writing partner Tom Davis.
Tom said it was like if someone titled your college yearbook Puked, and all it talked about was who puked, and when they puked, and what they puked. No one read Dickens for the first time, no one learned chemistry, no one fell in love, everyone just puked.
Judith Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Belushi's manager Bernie Brillstein were the most vocal in their criticism of the book. Aykroyd called the book trash, while Judith attempted to get publication of the book stopped over the unauthorized use of some photos. Judith felt Woodward had taken advantage of her and was incredibly upset, telling Rolling Stone magazine, quote, "I learned that Bob was a very joyless man, and I don't think he could ever see what made John happy. Also, I don't think he could see our relationship. He's had 2 divorces, and he's the kind of guy who shares more with someone at the office than with his wife. I don't think he believed we really loved each other. I also don't think he believed I really knew John." Woodward stood by his reporting. He was adamant that any accusations against him were by those unwilling to admit to themselves just how involved they were in Belushi's demise.
Interesting. Huh. I mean, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and, well, at least showing off the drug abuse in Hollywood is a good thing, I guess.
He maintained that he had investigated the possibility that Kathy Smith was involved in the LAPD, but there wasn't enough evidence. As for the allegations from Judith, they didn't do enough to portray John in a positive light. He told the Winston-Salem Journal that it wasn't for a lack of trying. As a reporter, I spent a lot of time trying to pull things out of Judith Belushi, he remembers. She would share portions of her diaries with him, and I was on the phone saying, "Read me, tell me." It would come to things like this, referring to a particularly depressed passage. Maybe she didn't write the good times in her diaries that much. Woodward's researcher John Anderson also told Rolling Stone that they didn't write about the good John because nobody wanted to talk to them about the good John. As for the response from the literary world,
Not great, Bob.
there were positive reviews of the book, but most coverage I found skewed negative. I think Mike Boone of the Montreal Gazette's criticisms summed it up the best. If you want to know why John Belushi lived a suicidal lifestyle, what motivated a man to burn out his career, his marriage, and ultimately his life, Wired won't be too much help. Woodward was adamant that the book was factual, and that's true, but that's really all it had going for it. As an unnamed associate of his said in the previously mentioned Rolling Stone article, I suspect Bob saw the Belushi book as a challenge. I think he was intrigued by the idea of exploring the dark side of someone else's soul, but there's a problem. Bob isn't all that introspective. He's a wonderful machine for gathering facts. He's not good at insight. In this case, he wanted to go beyond the facts, and he just couldn't. He couldn't see the gray areas were too immense, and the facts about Belushi became his only refuge. And there are some fair questions regarding those facts. Author Tanner Colby helped Judith Belushi write a biography on John in the 2000s, and during his research he noticed something odd about Woodward's reporting.
Yeah, he probably used a few things. Obviously, the things are not as they seem. The things that happened are not as Bob Woodward is describing this, obviously. That's why it's a bad biopic.
As he outlined in an article for Slate.com, it wasn't that Woodward lied or made stuff up, it's more he would remove context. Colby cites several examples, but there's one in the book I think I found on my own. In the book, Woodward talks about the Blues Brothers movie in a pretty bizarre way. His writing on the film makes it seem like it was a box office bomb nobody liked. He cites only negative reviews about the film and articles about its overblown budget, but doesn't cite one of the countless positive reviews or mention the fact the movie grossed over $100 million. It's not that Woodward is lying, but it definitely supports Colby's argument that he massaged the truth. As to why Woodward reported it in that way, the theory I saw bandied about most was that he was in over his head. He had virtually no experience with Hollywood, drugs, or comedians, and wasn't equipped to report on this kind of story. And then there's comedian Tim Kaczorski's theory that was printed in the book Live from New York. My theory on Bob Woodward and John Belushi goes like this. They're both from the same town. Woodward, he's like Salieri. No matter what the fuck he did, All the President's Men, winning the Pulitzer, whatever. Unfortunately, he grew up in the same town where John Belushi grew up. And so he's always going to be number two, and that's why he wrote Wired.
It is miraculous.
While Wired did cause a lot of controversy.
Oh, so this might be actually a case of jealousy. Interesting.
It also generated a lot of book sales, as it spent 15 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. If it were any other bestseller, it'd be a no-brainer that a film adaptation would be coming. But most people in the business thought it was too risky to greenlight a project that shined a spotlight on Hollywood's seedy underbelly. That is until a producer named Edward S. Feldman wanted to take a risk. Feldman had a fairly eclectic career, as he helped produce critically acclaimed films like Save the Tiger and Witness, while also being responsible for both Hot Dog the Movie and Hamburger the Motion Picture. Together with his partner Charles Meeker.
What are these? What are these movies? The fuck? Hamburger and Hot Dog? The heck?
Feldman purchased the film rights from Woodward for $250,000 and promptly got to work on the film that would end up a thorn in his side for the rest of the decade. Not too long after news broke that Feldman purchased the film rights, he received an unexpected phone call from Michael Ovitz. Ovitz was the head of the CAA talent agency, and may have been the most powerful man in show business.
Look at that, it's Booba, also known as Bill Clinton.
He was also John Belushi's former agent, and he was less than thrilled to see Wired becoming a film. Now, both men disagree on the tone of the phone call, but it's agreed upon that Ovitz told Feldman he shouldn't make the movie. Feldman didn't back down, and a war was declared. According to Robert Slater's Ovitz, the inside story of Hollywood's most controversial power broker, Ovitz contacted a number of his clients who had been mentioned in the book. Jim Belushi, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Robin Williams, and Robert De Niro. Ovitz then became authorized on behalf of the group to convey to Feldman the fact that these 5 clients would sue if the films sullied their characters. Ovitz hired an attorney and instructed him to tell Feldman, "We're not saying don't make the film, but if one word is inaccurate, we'll file a lawsuit." This was the first.
Interesting. Okay. I've never heard of those movies. Me neither. Interesting. Okay. What a drama.
Of many, many, many roadblocks that would befall the production of Wired. Aside from the previously named CAA clients, John Landis, Lorne Michaels, and Bernie Brillstein also threatened legal action. Dan Aykroyd announced to the press that he had hired witches to curse the film, while Jim Belushi took the simplest approach. He showed up at Feldman's office and trashed it. Still, Feldman refused to back down and work continued. Even though fear of a blackballing by CAA had made it incredibly difficult to find people to work on the movie, Feldman found talent where he could. To write the script, he hired Earl Mark Roche, who had previously written Martin Scorsese's New York, New York, and the cult classic sci-fi comedy The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. As director, Feldman hired
Again, I have not heard of these movies at all whatsoever, so I can't tell.
Robert Markowitz, who had made his bones directing countless made-for-TV movies. Now, for the starring role of Belushi, they auditioned hundreds of unknown actors to see if they could find anyone to fill his large shoes. Finally, in 1986, they announced they found their Belushi in a 25-year-old Northwestern graduate named Michael Marks. It looked like production was gearing up to finally begin.
What are you doing?
I wonder... Okay, so it killed some... Right? It was supposedly... It killed some careers. I wonder if the main actor here, the main role, is the one that lost his career because of this.
Due to issues with financing, production stopped and started on a consistent basis. Unable to find traditional funding, Feldman paid for the $13.5 million budget through the New Zealand grocery store / brewery / hotel company, Lioncourt. Lioncourt was just making the film as a tax write-off, and the complexities of that led to frequent production delays. By the time it was all settled, director Robert Markowitz left the project due to scheduling conflicts, and a new director named Larry Pierce was brought in. Pierce was a longtime journeyman director who had helped adapt books like A Separate Peace and Goodbye Columbus to the big screen. Pierce wanted to go a different direction for the Belushi role, and so Marks was replaced by another unknown, this one out of Boston.
Hey, Mo! Your sister's ass really tastes as sweet as Alvarez here says it does. He wants to know what your mama's putting in the corn muffin.
Yeah, long before he revolutionized television as Vic Mackey, Michael Chiklis was a theater graduate out of Boston looking for his big break. This wasn't just his first big movie role, it was his first role in anything. He'd been fighting to play John Belushi for quite some time, as he'd been called back hundreds of times to audition throughout the film's trouble.
This is gonna be very interesting. Good old Bill. Huh. I can't either. Watching this video is more interesting than watching the movie. Could be probably because, well, the movie isn't good. The video, however, is good.
Pre-production. The rest of the movie was filled out with a mix of character actors and relative unknowns, including Patty DeArmonville as Kathy Smith, Lucinda Janney as Judith Belushi, and Gary Grooms as Dan Aykroyd. Now, it is curious that Aykroyd threatened legal action, and yet was still depicted in the movie. The only explanation I could find came from Larry Pierce, who claimed that because Aykroyd was a public figure, it was hard for him to fight the portrayal like others did. That's why in this film, Bernie Brillstein isn't Bernie Brillstein. He's Arnie Fromson, and he's played by the pride of Cambridge, Massachusetts, Alex Rocco. Rounding out the cast were two characters that would...
So mostly unknowns? Mine is the main actor, the MC. Interesting.
Tip the hand of the, curious creative direction the film was taking. Ray Sharkey, who personally I loved as mob boss Sonny Steelgrave from the awesome first season of the cop show Wise Guy, played John Belushi's guardian angel, named Angel. And character actor and soon-to-be That Guy Hall of Famer JT...
Oh, wow! Angel! An angel! Named Angel! Peak writing! Peak cinema!
Joined the film is Bob Woodward. Finally, after so many starts and stops, filming began on May 16th, 1988. The movie was being made, and there was nothing anyone could do about it.
Wired is the story of the drug-drenched short life and fast times of John Belushi. It's based on Bob Woodward's scathing book about a man out of control and the people around him who either couldn't or wouldn't help. Belushi's friends, many of whom were painted unsympathetically in the book, detested it, and they hate the idea of a film even more.
I hope it never gets seen, and I'm going to hurl all the negative energy I can and muster all my hell energy to hurl against them. So my thunderbolts are out.
Yeah, the controversy was not dying down, and this was news to the film star. A self-professed theater rat,
Okay. Where is this going? What is happening to this movie? I'm still waiting to know how bad it truly is.
Nicholas had no idea what he had signed up for. In an article for Best Life magazine, he explained how he found out. 2 months into production, we had spent a day shooting Blues Brothers concert footage, and MTV had been on set to do a report. Right after the segment aired, John's camp came on and basically said that
it's been 1,000 years since I've heard the term MTV.
Everyone involved in the film had curses upon them. I just sat there and went, what? I'll never forget that moment. I was devastated. My first calls went to the producer and director. What the hell's going on? I asked, freaked out. You guys gotta let me in on this. That's when they told me about the controversy and that I was in for a ride. Against all odds, the film was finished. Not only that, but when a sneak preview of the movie was held, the early buzz was that it was actually good. Bob Woodward was allegedly so thrilled with the film that he kissed Edward Feldman. The hard part was done. They made a movie. All they needed now was to find a distributor. The comedy of errors continued as Wired had an absurdly difficult time finding anyone to release the film. Several different distributors backed out, which Feldman and Woodward blamed CAA for. They claimed the agency was exerting pressure on distributors to prevent the film's release. Feldman went as far as to compare the backlash to Wired to Martin Scorsese's controversial film The Last Temptation of Christ. Those in the anti-Wired camp scoffed at the notion. They felt that the film was having trouble finding a distributor because nobody wanted to see it. As Bernie Brillstein said in an article for the Shreveport Times, power and friendship only go so far in this town. If someone thinks he could make a buck, he'd work with Adolf Hitler. He would go on to say in other...
Crazy statement. That is a crazy statement. MTV took me a sec. Like, what was it? That's a good question. I don't barely remember anything what was on MTV. Dan Aykroyd has a massive forehead. Yeah, you could land a plane on it. True.
Interviews that he thought Feldman was just trying to sell the movie by leaning heavily into a "this is the movie Hollywood doesn't want you to see" angle. Well, despite the alleged best efforts of Michael Ovitz, Judy Belushi, and the occult connections of Dan Aykroyd, Taurus Entertainment finally agreed.
The movie still dropped, boys. Let's see how this is going.
To release the movie. On August 25th, 1989, 5 years after he purchased the film rights, Edward Feldman finally brought Wired to the big screen.
You know we should get for this movie? John Belushi.
Leo, he's dead.
I mean, I know everybody's made lousy movies. I mean, who hasn't made a stiff now and then?
Leo, you don't seem to understand me. John Belushi is really dead.
Wired is not your regular biopic. Instead of a chronological examination of John Belushi's life, Wired chooses to jump across not just timelines, but metaphysical planes of existence. There are 3 main stories going on at once. The first are the glimpses into John Belushi's life, his marriage to Judith, his big screen efforts, and his time spent on Saturday Night Live. Oh, we'll come back to that part later. Storyline 2 takes place in the present day, and follows Bob Woodward during the reporting process of Wired, as he interviews Belushi's friends and colleagues. And then there is the final storyline, which is centered around a deceased John Belushi driving around in a taxi with an angel as he tries to make sense of his own death. All the storylines culminate in one impassioned scene where Bob Woodward interviews John Belushi during Belushi's overdose and watches him die. Now usually...
That is crazy work. The movie wasn't released on DVD because it was so bad. It's also just straight up disrespectful. What the fuck? Ain't no way.
When I cover movies on this channel, this is the part where I offer my review of the film. However, I'm reminded of the old adage that if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. And if you're interested in seeing more, please hit subscribe. And holy shit, this might be the worst movie I've ever seen. Let's get the positive stuff out.
Bro, stop being nice. Bro lied to us. He had me the first half, not gonna lie.
Out of the way. It'll be quick. Michael Chiklis isn't terrible in this. He was able to replicate a lot of Belushi's mannerisms pretty well. In fact, the acting in this movie isn't a big complaint of mine. I don't think any of the actors are egregiously terrible. Well, except for one. Ray Sharkey, an Italian from Brooklyn, plays the Hispanic character Angel and makes him sound like a combination of Razor Ramon and Agador Spartacus. It's already insane enough to add a guardian angel to a biopic, but did they need to have him cha-cha in the background? Aside from Razor Ray Sharkey, the acting wasn't my biggest issue with the movie. My biggest issue was every other fucking part of it. The structure of the movie is so confusing as it jumps from year to year and timeline to time.
Yeah, that is confusing. It jumps from this to then, and then you have to readjust. It's like stupid. I know other movies do this too, but it's every time it is being used, it ends up being absolutely horrible.
Timeline with no sense of why we're there. The movie expects viewers to remember very detailed anecdotes from the book, while also info dumping on you in the least graceful way possible. It's the kind of movie where someone says something like this.
Animal House was a 1978 movie. That was really the last hit. It's 1982. We need a hit, and we need it now.
It's written as an anti-drug movie, but has the frantic energy of a coke user cornering you to talk about their favorite Fleetwood Mac song. The movie looks like crap too. I don't know where the $13 million budget for the movie went. It certainly wasn't to hire comedy writers for the SNL scenes. The filmmakers were denied the rights to remake sketches, and so they had to try and do their best to create their own. I defy you to watch this and not feel like you owe Aaron Sorkin an apology for making fun of students.
Why was there just the dude randomly dressed as a conehead? The fuck? Also, I don't remember much of it because it was so boring. I'm just surprised that I've seen a conehead now. For the first time in a while.
Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
And now he's just pulled a hot dog out of his kimono. Oh, look at the size of that wiener. That's the biggest wiener I've ever seen.
The Woodward storyline is gross, because they attempt to steer into the controversy of the book, even going so far as having John Belushi accuse Woodward of trying to cash in on his name. And ultimately, where the movie fails hardest is that portrayal of John Belushi. In the Angel storyline, which in theory would show John's growth as he comes to terms with his death, he is dealt one humiliation after another. He spends most of his time begging to be brought back to life, while also having to experience his own autopsy, be removed from his coffin because he's too—
That's crazy work. I remember in this movie, it's John Belushi doing drugs behind the scenes. The 1941 movie. It's just crazy disrespectful to a dead person.
Fat, and be told he has a chance of coming back to Earth, only to lose that chance in a game of pinball. Chiklis does the best that he could, but if you watch that film, you were just left thinking that John Belushi was a selfish, whiny, pathetic drug addict. But you know what? I guess he kinda loved his wife. I am not alone in my feelings of this movie, as it was soundly rejected by critics. One paper called it relentlessly depressing, and future Washington Post film critic Rita Kempley said of the film, "Wired is a biography without an ounce of soul or a shred of dignity." Congratulations to those writers on being able to quickly summarize their points, while I ended up ranting like an angry 2000s YouTuber. While the controversy regarding the book led to high book sales, Wired the movie was an all-time box office bomb. In Edward S. Feldman's autobiography, Tell Me How You Love the Picture, he noted that of the 1,200 theaters that showed Wired that opening weekend, only 5 of them made over $1,000. Well, you know, they made the movie, it didn't work, but at least the worst was over. Wired was later released on VHS, but quickly went out of print. It
was even released on VHS. Well, of course, if it failed as a VHS, it would have never made it to a DVD anyways, so it doesn't matter. Right?
Been released on DVD, and I don't think it's streaming anywhere. Larry Pierce would never direct another feature film again, as he transitioned to directing mainly made-for-TV movies. He stands by his decision to direct Wired, and thought it was an important film to make to show kids the dangers of drugs. The movie seemingly ended the career of screenwriter Earl Mark Rausch, who said in an interview with World Watch 1 in January 2022 that in hindsight, I shouldn't have touched it, but it wasn't easy for me to walk away. Edward S. Feldman, of all people, seemed to take the quickest road back to success. He had some struggles, but by the time the 90s ended, he had produced box office hits in The Truman Show and 101 Dalmatians.
The Truman Show. Okay, interesting. A movie with one that's lost media. Too bad that is not happening.
As for the cast of the film, some like Gary Grooms never had a major role again, but the rest of them were able to recover and continue on as working actors. Still, the specter of Wired loomed large. J.T. Walsh learned that lesson the hard way when he was kicked off the set of the 1990 film Loose Cannons. Allegedly, star Dan Aykroyd had found out someone from Wired was cast in the film and had them fired. Still, the man who was hit hardest was Michael Chiklis. Before he had taken the role of Belushi, he was an up-and-coming actor, and now he was struggling just to get an audition. Whether it was due to the pressures of Michael Ovitz or not, Chiklis was drowning. It took over a year, but finally it was Burt Reynolds who was the first to lend him a hand. He cast Chiklis on his show BL Striker and told Chiklis that he had lived through the Hollywood blacklist and didn't want to see him punished the same way. Chiklis slowly worked his way back into television and got more prominent roles, including 5 seasons as the lead role in ABC's The Commish. He made peace with the Belushis as well. A chance encounter with Jim Belushi started tense, but Chiklis was able to apologize to Jim, and their meeting ended with both of them in tears. He later was able to connect with Judy as well, who also let Chiklis know that she held no ill will. There's a lot to be said that sometimes the best lessons you learn in life come from the hardest.
Interesting. So this actor still got away later, at least.
Parts. So in doing this video, I wondered if there were any noticeable lessons Chiklis would have taken away from Wired, and I did find something I think is interesting. As part of an interview at the Cannes Film Festival in 1989, Chiklis talked about what he perceived to be a pivotal moment in John's life. A moment when John attempted to make a romantic comedy, only for the audience to reject it, and the pain John felt over being pigeonholed. It's harder to look at that moment and wonder if that anecdote stayed in the back of his mind. If maybe that was the thought process that led to him making a concerted effort to shed his affable persona. If maybe that's where the decision was made to pursue characters like Vic Mackey. Chiklis wowed audiences in the role, but shocked the world when he won the Emmy for Best Actor in a Drama in 2002. As he was up there accepting his award, he got choked up. And as he explained in an interview with Kevin Pollak, it wasn't just about winning the award.
Okay. I think I've seen this. Now that he's bald, I have a feeling that I've seen him somewhere before. Also, this movie is an hour and 47 minutes. That's crazy. Wait a minute. I think I've seen him before. Somewhere. Let me Google something. Let me see. Wait. Wasn't he in the Fantastic Four? He was. Like the 2005 Fantastic Four? That one? I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that he was in this case. Because I Googled it. Ha! Interesting.
It was about thinking how Wired had almost gotten him blackballed from Hollywood, but there he was now, celebrated by his peers. So maybe, just maybe, that research led Chiklis to make the decisions that changed his life forever. I hope it's true, because that means at least something good would have come out of that piece of shit. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And in the comments, let me know your favorite bad biopic. Which is the one you think sucks the hardest?
I haven't watched enough to know this. Anyways, interesting. I did not know this. And that movie definitely is hot garbage and really disrespectful to the dead. And to his family. This to Belushi's family and friends and everything. Even the actors that acted in this. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.